Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Murder Club podcast. I am your host, your favorite author, and in today's episode, we'll be discussing 44 Days in Hell, the murder of Junko Furuta. This episode is credited to Danny Pinion from the Daily Macabre. Viewers' discretion is advised. Furthermore, if I botched any names, I do apologize in advance. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss any of our episodes. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode. 44 Days in Hell, the story of Junko Furuta. The calendar read January 4th, 1989. She woke up in a room that she wished was her own, but alas, was a room she recognized far too well. Her body weak, in pain from the torture she endured the past 44 days. Her arms, legs, back, and stomach were cut, bruised, and tattered from the beatings and rape HirOshi Miyano, Joe Agura, Nobuharu Minato, and Yasushi Watanabe performed, simply because she was Junko. Mustering up all her strength, she tries to crawl away from this room. She had been held against her will since November 25th, the day HirOshi and Nobuharu made the conscious decision to lure her into an abandoned warehouse and rape her. Junko Furuta was a loving daughter, a sister, and a hard worker. She was a star student at Yashio Minami High School, which is where she met HirOshi Miyano. She had good grades, near perfect attendance, and worked a part-time job after school at a plastic molding company. On the day she was abducted, she was riding her bike home from her part-time job when Nobuharu was instructed by HirOshi to knock Junko off her bike, a common form of mischief performed by the boys in town at the time. Once she fell off her bike, Nobuharu ran off and HirOshi acted as if he coincidentally was in the area and witnessed the attack. He offered to walk her home in case anyone came back to attack her again and suggested they walk a different route. In the instance, the assailant knew her usual route home. Junko graciously accepted this offer. HirOshi wasn't the Romeo that he portrayed this day. It was all staged. Most people, including his mother and father, were afraid of HirOshi due to his affiliation with the Yakuza, or otherwise known as the Japanese Mafia. HirOshi had made passes to Junko before, but she was so focused on school and her part-time job, she politely declined each time, and it's believed that this is what caused HirOshi to target her. Junko, unfortunately, only was aware of affiliation with the Yakuza the day he walked her into an abandoned warehouse instead of her home. Why didn't she just run when she realized what was happening, you might ask yourself. Why didn't she try to escape as soon as she realized what was happening? It was because she was terrified of the Yakuza, and now she was terrified of HirOshi. He had threatened to kill her if she screamed or ran away. Once HirOshi was done having his way with her, he moved her from the warehouse to a nearby hotel. At the hotel, he called Nobuharu and the rest of his friends. Once the group got to the hotel, HirOshi bragged about the rape, and Joe Agora had a small request: to keep her captive and invite more people to have sex with her. The friend group did have a reported history of gang rape, so this wasn't a new concept for the boys. They had recently kidnapped and raped another girl. Why not do the same with Junko? They could just release her after, as they did the last victim. Early the next morning, HirOshi took Junko to his home. There, Joe, Nobuharu, and Yasushi stood waiting. They had her backpack with all her personal belongings. This gave them everything they needed to know about her. Where she lived was the most crucial piece of information for them. They had the upper hand now, threatening to kill her and her family if she tried to escape. She was completely overpowered by these four boys and struggled to fight them off as she was gang raped again. At this point, Junko's family had grown concerned and worried. She had not come home from work that day, and they were unable to reach her at any of her friends' homes. On November 27th, they phoned the local police and tried to file a missing persons report. Once the gang heard of the missing persons report, they forced Junko to call her mother and say she had simply run away with a friend and had to have the police stop looking for her. This way, it could encourage any further investigations about her disappearance. Because Hiroshi had her captive at home, they had to come up with a reason she was there in case his parents asked who she was. It was agreed that she would pose as one of the kidnapper's girlfriends, but the lie fell off when the boys realized that Hiroshi's parents were too afraid to even call the police. The Minatos would eventually tell authorities in an interview that they didn't intervene due to Hiroshi's connections to the Yakuza and feared for their lives had they tried to get the police involved. For 44 grueling days, she was abused, raped, beaten, tortured. Other members of the Yakuza, believed to be around 100 men and up to 12 in one day, would routinely visit the home to torment and rape Junko. According to trial statements, it's been claimed she had been raped over 400 times collectively. They would beat her mercilessly, treating her as their human punching bag hung from the ceiling. They starved her and would force her to eat live cockroaches and drink her own urine. They dropped dumbbells on her stomach, bashed her face with golf clubs or against the cement floor, made her sing songs while they beat her, and at times forced her to masturbate to arouse the men. They sodomized her with household objects including a lit light bulb, scissors, and even lit fireworks. They burnt her vaginal area with lighters and cigarettes. They burnt her eyelids with hot wax, tore her nipples off with pliers, and would pierce her breast with sewing needles. The torture was day in and day out. It was reported by one of the gang members that she was tormented so badly she would fall in and out of consciousness, to which they would then submerge her head in water to continue the torture. Junko did try to save herself. One attacker recalled an instance where they were resting after a long day of drinking and caught her trying to call the police. They punished her by drenching her feet with lighter fluid and burning them. This caused severe burns to her already badly bruised legs, which made it impossible to walk the last 20 days of her life. She was unable to use her hands properly due to all the broken bones inside them. By the 30th day, she was unable to control her bowel movements due to all of the internal damage to her organs, vulva, and rectum. It would take her over an hour to crawl to the restroom, so she began urinating and defecating where she lay. This led to more beatings. On January 4th, HirOshi challenged her to a game of mahjong, which is likely a cross between rummy and dominoes. Junko ended up winning the round, and this severely angered HirOshi and the other boys. They began beating her with a barbell and set her body on fire. This was all Junko was able to handle. This was the final blow. Junko would finally die from all her injuries. She was only 17. Once Nobuharu's brother realized Junko was dead and not unconscious, the group wrapped her body and put her into a 55-gallon drum. They filled this drum with wet cement and threw the drum into a cement truck headed to Kyoto. Remember the other girl the group raped? She had reported her assailants to the police and was able to identify HirOshi and Joe Aguru. On January 23rd, they will be arrested for this kidnapping and rape, and on March 29th, they'd be interrogated as the police found women's underwear in their possession. During the interrogation, the interviewing officer led HirOshi to believe they were aware of a murder he had committed. This was the murder of another woman, who was not Junko, who had been killed alongside her 7-year-old son. At this point, HirOshi fell under the notion that Joe confessed to everything regarding the death of Junko, so proceeded to tell the officers where they would be able to find Junko's body. The officers were shocked and confused by this confession, as it wasn't the person they were initially looking for. They took this confession seriously, followed the directions HirOshi had given them, and found the drum containing Junko's lifeless body. When authorities finally got a hold of Junko's body, they found soda bottles stuck in her anus and her face so mutilated they were unable to immediately identify that it was Junko. She was only able to be positively identified via fingerprints. Autopsy reports also showed that she was pregnant at the time of her death. DNA evidence will help identify and officially charge Tetsuo Nakamura and Koichi Ahara after finding their DNA on her body. It was originally believed that Koichi was coerced into raping Junko out of fear of the Yakuza, as he told his brother what happened earlier at HirOshi's home. Koichi's brother told their parents and the police were called. 2 officers would be dispatched to HirOshi's home, but were told there was no girl inside. The police were even invited in to check the premises, and in a maddening turn of events, they declined the offer, believing the invitation to go inside was good enough proof that there was nothing wrong. Had the police checked the home, they'd find a badly beaten Junko, and her ordeal would have ended at 16 days. She would most definitely be alive today. The 2 officers faced major backlash from the community, rightfully so, and will be fired for not following proper procedure. The arrest of Joe Agora, Yasushi Watanabe, Nobuharu Minato, and HirOshi's brother will follow the confession. Although this was shocking, widespread national news, the names and identities of the boys who killed Junko were withheld because the Japanese court considered them juveniles and not adults, despite them being between the ages of 17 and 19 years old at the time of the murder. Although they were tried as juveniles, they will face adult sentences. These sentences would be moot, as each perpetrator served less than 9 years in jail, except for HirOshi. HirOshi was originally set to 17 years in prison for the crime, but was given an added 3 years by a high court judge when he attempted to appeal his sentence. After the men's release from prison, they all changed their names to keep their anonymity, as a way to make some amends for the atrocities her son committed in her home. HirOshi's mother ultimately paid Junko's family 50 million yen, which translates to $425,000 in US money. After she sold her home where the torture took place, Junko would have her funeral helps on April 2nd, 1989. One memorial card from her friend read, "Jun-chan, welcome back. I have never dreamed that we would see each other again in this way. You must have been in so much pain, so much suffering. The happy we all made for the school festival looked really good on you. We will never forget you. I have heard that the headmaster has presented you with a graduation certificate. So we graduated together, all of us. Jun-chan, there is no more pain, no more suffering. Please rest in peace." The location where Junko's body was found in the cement drum has been developed since and is now a park. Well, guys, that'll do it for today's episode. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss any of our episodes. You can catch me again next Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And before I close out, I just want to say my condolences go out to their family. I can't believe that these guys only got 9 years, and the guy who set up everything only got 20 years. That's just ridiculous. Like, these guys would be back on the streets, and this girl would never, ever live again at only 17 years old. So I think some type of corruption played a part in that. That's the only way that they could have got that little bit of time. And then them being a part of the Yakuza probably also played a part in that as well. Justice system is never fair. I know that for a fact. It's just ridiculous that this girl had to go through that and her family had to lose her all for nothing because these sickos wanted to get off on raping an innocent 17-year-old girl for no other reason than for their pleasure. And that'll do it for today. Once again, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You can check me out on Instagram at Your Favorite Author, on Facebook at Robert Collins. Your Favorite Author out.